Good evening and welcome to another episode of CovidCastJA. Welcome, viewers. We are at episode 56. I'm your host, Rochelle Cameron, and CovidCast is brought to you by the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica with our sponsors, NCB Group and the JMMB Group. We are so happy to have you here this evening because today we're going to be talking about the future of work. Let's get to some business though. Have you received this week's memo? Have you in fact signed up to receive our weekly memos? We're at episode 56, so if you have not yet signed up, it means you've missed quite a few memos. But all is not lost. Email us at sme@psoj.org, sme@psoj.org, or visit us at smallbusinessportal.com and you'll be able to see episodes of CovidCast as well as to access past memos. So today we're going to be joined by three experts in the field of human resources and employment law. And we are going to be talking about where we are now with work during COVID. What does the future of work look like? How has COVID accelerated this future of work? You know, we talked about remote working, and our government here in Jamaica had implemented flexi time legislation. And, you know, a lot of organizations still didn't figure out exactly how to apply flexi time. And COVID, in a matter of a few days, accelerated remote working. Persons work from home, persons pretty much work from anywhere. Are jobs changing because of this new phenomenon? What kind of jobs are opening up in this time? In terms of your employment contracts, should you be finding some innovative ways of attracting talent and keeping talent? What about layoffs and redundancies 1 year later? What exciting new things should micro, small, and medium enterprises be doing to attract talent, to keep their talent, to grow their business with talent? We're going to be looking at all of these things today, and we are joined today by Lisa Suarez-Lewis, Gavin Goff, and Diana Burgess. Now, our first guest is actually Lisa Suarez-Lewis, who is a dynamo. She's founder and CEO of Great People Solutions Limited. She is an awardee of the 101 most famous global coaching leaders from the World HRD Congress in Mumbai, India, in February 2020. She's the founder and CEO of Great People Solutions, which she created in 2013. So she pivoted a long time ago. Her career has spanned 20 plus years across a range of local global businesses in banking, telecoms, and FMCG industries, including roles in Diageo, Red Stripe, Cable and Wireless, Scotiabank, and KPMG. Her roles cover general management, consulting, end-to-end human resource management, corporate and commercial banking, and corporate governance. I told you she's a dynamo. She's a visionary leader in her field of HR consulting. She's commercially driven and possesses a deep understanding of talent and of unlocking people's potential to deliver competitively advantaged business results. We have this kind of expert on the show. Please call your friends. Lisa is a certified coach with training on breakthrough performance coaching and energy leadership, and she has a BSc in industrial engineering. Look at that, Lisa, and an MBA in finance and marketing from the Great University of the West Indies. Lisa, welcome. You're on mute.
It's on mute. All right, I'm here. No, listen, I heard you say most famous. It was an F word, but it was not most famous. Apparently, you know, the Indian group, they actually say most fabulous. So I just took it. I said, if I got a nomination like that, I'll get to Mumbai to pick it up. So thank you.
And thank you for joining us today on CovidCast.
It's a real pleasure. Thank you.
Noeline David on. Noeline, welcome. She says, excited to be on the platform. Wendell is one of our CovidCast regulars. Welcome.
Awesome.
Now, Lisa, can you tell us a little bit about Great People Solutions?
Mm-hmm. All right. So, well, we should just, in full disclosure, we worked together when we were at Cable and Wireless, so that I know Rochelle really well. And in 2013, my role at Red Stripe, after some restructuring, it was made redundant. Of course, I was doing a restructuring, so that was, at least I had a little heads up. But I started this company because I thought that part of my purpose was to really unlock a lot of talent and to it was very much about Jamaica. So at the end of the day, I created Great People Solutions to do everything in HR because I was either going to go back into a corporate job or I would just do my own thing. So I became an entrepreneur, not planning to, and an SME, not planning to, but it worked out. So from, my business was run from 2013 as virtual office. I had people on my team that were overseas. They're still with me today. We have done everything in HR, including advisory services, reorganizations, change management, and coaching. We do executive coaching and executive search and selection. So all of that kind of comes together and is still a very active part of the business. And I do work in the Caribbean as well. So I partner with other people and, it's exciting.
Yes. And in this COVID pandemic period, can you tell us a little bit about what were some of the changed requirements you were seeing from your clients pre-COVID and during COVID?
Well, great questions. I myself had to kind of go through all of the, what is COVID? I did a lot of research. I created this paper and I realized that this is actually not just a medical issue. It's medical, it's economic, it's social. And at the end of the day, even the technology, because technology was actually going to be making a lot of changes in the workplace. COVID accelerated it. So when people were thinking of, like I recruit people and I would be interviewing and I said, well, I interview on Zoom and send you a link. Oh, can we do it in person? I said, actually, I prefer to do it on Zoom because I'll see how you show up and I'll give you some feedback. And I actually see better on how you show up online than even in person. And so from 2013, I'm encouraging people to use it. COVID just kind of dropped them in that. They didn't have a choice. So it's interesting and it's exciting to see people not asking questions again, albeit I just fumbled my mute. But most people, you've seen them grow. And apart from the obvious job loss and so on, what we're seeing is that companies that were already working in like global organizations were accustomed to remote work. They transitioned easier than others. And if I separate the government from private sector, the government struggle. They still struggle today. 2 months ago, I was being asked to, in support of a client, we had to have a face-to-face conciliator meeting. I said, I'm not going to do that. We're going to do it by Zoom. Of course, it hasn't really happened, but I'm not going to go down and, take the client down into that environment. And by then, the government anyway had said everybody should be working remotely. So we've seen those changes. We've written workplace protocols. My business has changed in terms of that. So I do a fair amount of webinars and so on and training. So basically, that's it. But everybody has been just very cost conscious. And job cuts and the advisory services is all about, layoffs. And I guess you've seen it too as a lawyer.
Yes. So Lisa, in terms of where we are now, do you see this online space that we, a lot of persons have been dragged into? Mm-hmm. Do you see this as where the future is, that we are actually living in the future, or that it will kind of just dissipate after everybody gets vaccinated?
Well, not the CEOs I deal to, because basically, some have lost quite a bit. So nobody is going to be going back in and paying all those expenses if they found their business could operate with some people working remotely, not having to commute. They actually have higher productivity. Everybody is mobile. So, get a call after work hours, nobody's complaining because you want to keep the job. So you find that the productivity has gone up, and I think they will keep some of those patterns. And this is worldwide. This is not just Jamaica. So, you will see some shrinking real estate footprints. Some shrinking footprints in real estate, because why do all of that when you're operating well? before. And I think it's going to take some time for Jamaica. Other countries, people are actually coming back. But, you know, some of the surveys that have happened even overseas is that employees are being asked, you know, are you ready to come back? And they don't want to come back.
Yes.
Because the complications are they still have children at school. They're still, you know, having to struggle with all of that. And therefore, they're not ready to come back fully.
Yes.
And in fact, even in America, you find people have crossed state lines. And HR is saying, hey, I didn't employ you in Florida. I employed you in New York City. So you'll find that we have different issues here. But I think for the service organizations that people were working productively remotely, they were going to keep a pattern that allows the employer and the employee to have that pattern continue for a while. But bear in mind, Rochelle, I must tell you, remember Jamaica is a small percentage that can actually work remotely because most of our jobs are face-to-face.
Yes. So in terms of for the MSME, a lot of business owners have been struggling with getting their businesses online, especially where their businesses were more face-to-face. They relied on that kind of relationship. At this stage, when we're looking at how consumers expect to access services and how the world is changing, what are some of the key changes that our MSMEs need to make in terms of mindset, business operations to survive?
It's a great question, but you know, I always say there are always advantages and disadvantages. One of the things that MSMEs have is size and agility. They don't have a lot of stuff that's there to change and a lot of consultation and so on. A lot of the subject matter expertise might be in one or two persons if it's a service organization. So the whole idea is that stay agile and be prepared to pivot and pivot fast. So I'll give you a quick example too. So I'm going to talk about technology because that's a big part of it, right? E-commerce is a no-brainer. You have to have a footprint. I mean, 2 years ago, I'd be speaking to people and they said, I don't have a LinkedIn page. And I'm like, what? You got to have one. Call me later. You know, I'll even help you for free. Well, I didn't say that to that person. but I had a friend and she basically moved her hair salon into her guest room. And it's just as fancy as her hair salon before. But she could pivot fast. So I think the whole idea is that you need to be able to work fast. You need to be able to train your staff. Technology is not going away. That it's out of the box. You can't put it back in the box. So any technology that you can use and put in your organization that creates productivity and builds capability for the team, you have to do it. So, and I would say to you that you'd be shocked. There's so much free training that has been available online. And even with certificates and so on, that, you know, I always said to clients, if you have employees at home because you're struggling to figure out what you're doing with COVID, they should not come back to work after COVID with the same skills they left before. They have to come back with some sort of capability. You know? And that applies to MSMEs.
For viewers, we actually did a show looking at some of the productivity tools and some of the training that's available online, and we provided links. So make sure that you go and check out our SME memo. Hi, Dr. Smith, great to have you. Now, Lisa, in terms of we've looked at some of the challenges and some of the changes. Now, as this year has progressed, it's been a year and odd now. As it has progressed, what are some of the key mistakes that you have seen or small businesses make in terms of their people?
You know, they say you should hire slow but fire fast. So I think some got themselves into cash flow issues because they didn't, you know, drop the costs fast enough. A lot of people didn't know there was something called a layoff, which is you don't have to pay redundancy. Just lay off people until you can get back on your feet. If you can pay the staff some salary during that time, but, you know, kind of bring your costs down to that period. So again, if they didn't have that agile pivoting, you will find that they would have suffered. So sadly, you saw some hotels closing because they didn't really have a choice either, because remember, it was lights out in tourism. I'm
Yes.
really hoping that they can get back up, you know. Not training people, not saying to people, listen, even if you're at home, train yourself. Here are some things I want you to do. Make sure you learn Excel and Outlook and all of the, workplace productivity tools before you come back in. Retraining themselves to have a mindset that tries new things. So to me, this is a pandemic that's affected us all, but you have to figure out, well, keep learning, keep reading. There's so much stuff. I've just immersed myself in it just to keep abreast. So
Yes.
I think if as a MSME, you have to keep on a cutting edge of what you're doing, because it's all competitive. The competition hasn't gone away. You and your team members have to figure you have to be better than the rest. So, keep learning and keep looking on new ways of doing your old business, or maybe an add-on business. And another thing too is, remember, the gig economy is real. It's go live. It's not going away. So there are lots of gig jobs out there that you could tell your employees, listen, I'm putting you on layoff. Here are some opportunities that you could look on in the meantime. Do that as a side hustle. And, when we come back,
And for people know what the gig economy is, what's that, Lisa?
So it's worldwide, but a gig economy is basically one that had these small jobs that would have come up based on technology and e-commerce. So Uber is a classic gig. So I could be working as a full-time job, but I'm an Uber driver in the evening. So that's a classic definition. But to me, we've used the term a little loosely, where a gig job could be anything that's a side hustle, that's a next job. So Jamaicans go abroad and they are doing 2-3 jobs. We have that capacity right here. If that's where we are, that's where we are. The economy is going to go that way. Rochelle, not to say your age, but my age, when I came out to university, I got a great internship as an engineer and all of that. Those days are really gone in that way. You're coming out with a university degree and going into a temp job.
Yes.
So, I think you have to adapt to the change. And also, there are people who are here who can work remotely for a job overseas. That's happening too. I hope the Ministry of Labor is kind of figuring out that's happening too. You can do a job in Jamaica and you don't have to live here as long as the job is remote. And that's the future of work. Coming back to this topic, the future of work is not going away. It's here. In fact, COVID brought it closer.
So in looking at that as one of the points of the future of work, what is the future of work looking like?
This is where I tell you to breathe. So things were happening before COVID: automation, AI, disruption. There is research happening now in some industries that are going to disrupt things. And if you think of, say, Amazon as a big disruptor, jobs that were retail and customer facing and so on, that can be offshored and so on. Yes. When I was in India last year, February, just before COVID, I remember at the workshop, and most of the people there were actually on that side of the world. So I didn't go to Sherm, which is this side of the world. They're talking about 50 to 60% of the people in jobs knew that in 5 years, either their job would change, their career would change, they'd have to reskill if they wanted to keep the job and so on. So those numbers are high in those industries and countries. But the point of the matter is that there's a lot of fear that, whatever is a replicable task will be automated. Lawyers, you have Watson is already doing some of the paralegal work. So I'm finding that even some of the tools some of the techniques we'll be having in services and consulting is going to go down to a tool, an app.
To an app.
Yes, it could be. So I think, at the end of the day, there's a lot of fear, but people who I'm on both sides. I'm like a seesaw. 1 minute I say I'm so enthralled with the future, but at the same time, I know job loss is real. But jobs will change and jobs will come about. And then there are some classic jobs that say really not changing. If you're a skilled tradesman or woman, if you're a plumber and electrician, that's going to stay for a while. So don't turn your nose up at that. Okay. I know somebody in Canada who moved from HR too, electrician. Yes.
No, and it's funny that you say that too, because one of the tradesmen in this COVID time here,
Active.
especially because people have been at home, so all of a sudden the pipe that was dripping from months before is really starting to annoy. So the tradesmen have really been able to move their businesses forward. I see Nolene, hi Nolene, says, do you think Jamaica will ever reach the stage where flexi work and work from home are common features of the workplace, given the face-to-face work culture that we have?
Noeline, that's a great question. I think it's there already. A company that's doing it and doing it with staff productively is unlikely to go back all the way and stop. They're going to stay. But just as a reminder, as I said, for us in Jamaica, I would say 20% of the jobs in Jamaica can work from home productively. We have many more customer-facing or face-to-face, hands-on jobs that are not even anywhere near our office. And just so we put some of the statistics, we have a workforce, an employed labor force of about 1.2 million. Over half of that is unskilled, uncertified, working at or near the minimum wage and underemployed. So, we have a big group of people who never had the opportunity to work from home. The vast majority of our workers can't work from home. Those who can and who work productively from home are going to still have that format.
Yes.
So and with their electricity bills too, because we know that the electricity bills in the transition to the home
skyrocketed. Yes.
Yeah, a little bit.
In terms of the skills of the future, what are some of the important skills that persons need to be developing? Because sometimes, even when you're in your business and you're doing well, people think that that's it. But as you've said, you have to keep upskilling yourself. What are some of the key skills that are going to be necessary to remain? Your business remaining viable, your job remaining viable?
Right, great question, right? And MSME, large company, any of them. An easy way to remember the skills of the future is most of them start with C. You need to be able to be a critical thinker. You need to be creative. You need to communicate. You need to be able to manage change. You need to have a continuous improvement mindset. You need to be a learner. And to me, start with leadership. And that's why we do leadership coaching. You got to be able to know that you have a growth mindset, you're resilient. And there are words that are being used now that we really, because of, I did breakthrough performance coaching. I'm now doing breakthrough coaching. The reality is that you have to be anticipatory. Yes. You have to be anti-fragile. You can write that one down, right? That's from one of my futurists. Because the world is what we call a VUCA plus world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous, and more. So that's not going to change. So for you to really do well, even if you have your own business or your MSME or a large business, I would do a lot of training and making sure your mindset is very flexible and, as I said, agile and all those things. But there are lots of them in C's. Collaborative as well. If you collaborate, you can innovate. So things that kind of drive that and make you able to cope are the kind of capabilities that we encourage. I hope that was helpful. It's a laundry list, actually.
It's funny. And in fact, for those of you who have not signed up for SME Memo, you can email us at sme@psoj.org. And Lisa has graciously provided much of this information, so you can print it off and have your little piece of paper where you walk with to remember these things. Lisa, as we're wrapping up, I noted that quite a few times you've mentioned mindset. I see Andy Dawes says anti-fragile, new but clear and true, a true Andy. But mindset is now a buzzword. And in previous times, people didn't talk about, we talked about the lean organization, the agile organization, everything else except mindset. But COVID actually brought mindset to the fore because mindset has been important for leadership, for your people, and for just your business survival. In terms of the mindset that's needed to drive high performance, what are some of the tips you would leave with our SMEs?
So different people have different ways of describing mindset, but when you have really thought of who you are and connected it to your purpose, you are just basically using energy and thinking that automatically defaults to this mindset. So we say a growth mindset, an unstoppable mindset, a resilient mindset. I mean, these are all great words for a COVID pre, during, and post. And what you want to be able to do is, if you have a breakthrough mindset, oh, you're in a serious big space there. Essentially, nothing really, you live in the world of and nothing is a hurdle that you can't cross, because when you see the hurdle or you get a target, you don't say, oh no, I can't. You don't think about how you're doing it. You just say, well, sure, I can do it. And you're going to find different ways to do it. So you can go around the mountain, through the mountain, across it. You can find two people to help you around the mountain. And if you think about some mindsets, that like if you are in a heavily regulated industry, you and I've worked in a few, you figure there are ways to kind of put pressure, lobby, find creative ways, engage, to maybe even get the regulation changed to be more open and equitable for business. So mindset is very important, because then you're using a discretionary energy, which is, you can't pay an employee for that. They're just in there. And they'll be able to add value and make ideas bigger and better quality. So it's a whole conversation that maybe we can have another day.
Yes, I'm thinking. Well, I think that you've left us with the anticipatory and anti-fragile mindset and thought process that is key to business survival. And God says she's loving this conversation. Thank
you, Andy.
Yes. And Lisa, always a pleasure, always very enlightening. And we're going to have to do a show on mindset. I think our leaders are now open to actually using the word as a starting point and applying mindset and delving into what this actually means, because as you say, it is going to be that resilience, that anticipatory nature, that anti-fragility.
I'll help to teach you how to find it.
Yes.
Because it's there.
Yes.
It's there and you know it, but we just put a little structure. Yes. So thank you. And this is a great program. Congrats to the PSOJ.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And Lisa, for those, because I know people are trying to figure out how they can potentially get in touch with Mrs. Suarez-Lewis. Lisa, if you can just put your information in the chat, we'll post it so that persons can find you. Suzanne's breakthrough mindset is key. You are Lisa.
Absolutely, Susan. We're speaking the same language.
Yes. So thanks very much, Lisa. And if you're just joining us, our first guest was Lisa Suarez-Lewis, who is the founder and CEO of Great People Solutions. If you're just joining us and you're saying to yourself, I cannot believe I missed that conversation with Lisa, remember that the recordings of all of our episodes are available at smallbusinessportal.com, on our Facebook page, as well as on YouTube. So if you're in Jamaica and Sunday is a 2:00 lockdown, Sunday afternoon, you've got so much material to binge watch. We are now going to be joined by a regular on CovidCast, attorney at law, partner at Myers, Fletcher and Gordon, Mr. Gavin Goff. Myers, Fletcher and Gordon, MF&G, is one of the leading law firms in Jamaica, and Gavin has spent much of his career advocating for employment law reform for the mutual benefit of businesses and workers. And in Gavin's line of practice, he's generally focused on industrial relations pertaining to the law and its practice. Gavin has a particular skill set in breaking down very complex matters into easily digestible form, and that is why we have him quite regularly on CovidCast. And our viewers are always in an anticipatory mode when Mr. Goff. Hi, Gavin.
Hi, Rochelle.
Good to have you on this week
again. Thank you for having me so much. As a repeat guest, I feel like a star now.
And Gavin, you have come and talked to us about redundancy, layoffs, some of the things that business owners needed to be mindful of in this COVID time. Now, it is 1 year and some months later. What have you been seeing in the work environment where redundancies and layoffs are concerned? Is it all in chaos, or have employers been able to manage the situation as best they can?
Well, most of the experience I have is from people who come and ask me for advice. So they tend to manage. But just from observation, I think that it's been a rough go at it. Many businesses were thrown into the deep end and had to adapt really quickly to understand what their options were from a legal perspective, from a moral perspective as well. The last time we were here, we were speaking about some of these loopholes and how they could be exploited, and employees would get the short end of the stick. Well, unfortunately, that has happened. And a lot of businesses, unfortunately, have had to save themselves at the expense of their human resource. That's unfortunate. But the good news is I think that I see more businesses coming back online, reopening slowly but surely, and changing the way that they operate to make themselves more resilient to the second or the third or the fourth wave, which we hope doesn't arrive, but we must be prepared for the next time. So for instance, some things, people are looking at their contracts a lot closer now, both employers and employees, to try and get a better understanding of how to tackle it going forward. So things like layoffs are now being written into the contracts where they were not before. Things like vaccination policies are now being written, and requirements for working in particular areas. And we are seeing a lot more dialogue in terms of what the law says about things like layoffs, about things like redundancies, discrimination in employment. We haven't really had this level of dialogue well, certainly not in the 16 years I've been in this area. Have I seen anything like this before?
Yes, and the dialogue, there would have been that intensity with layoffs and redundancies.
Yeah.
And I think people didn't recognize that the dialogue would continue as things unraveled and new things came up. So things like work from home policies, vaccination policies. What is happening with that? We saw a couple of news articles with companies addressing their vaccination concerns in various ways. Can vaccination policies be actually written into the policies of company? If you're hiring now, can you include in an employment contract that you must have a COVID vaccination?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be frank with you. In my home, if anybody is working for me, looking after my young son, and therefore coming in contact with his grandparents, you have to be vaccinated to work inside my home. And a lot of other employers feel the same way, that they may make certain accommodation for existing employees, but new employees, they don't really have a choice. And so I do think that that is the future of work. The future of work is vaccinated workers.
So what about work from home and policies in regard to work from home? Where persons know there are some organizations that are looking at hybrid versions of work. Some persons, when they ask them, they don't want to come back into work. In terms of how employers address these kinds of things in contracts, should they be looking to amend their contracts to facilitate work from home? Can they just say that you need to come back at the office Monday morning?
Yeah, I think an employer can always insist that someone come into the office, right? Because the contracts would have anticipated that that's where they would have been working from. But at the same time, yes, we are seeing a lot of people who are able to work from home enjoying that new way of work. NCB, one of their sponsors, is well known to essentially have mandatory work from home. You have to almost apply to come into the workplace. I think that they're the exception. I think there's a wonderful initiative that they have there. I think that's the exception. As Lisa said before, most people can't work from home. And our economy can't survive in its present form. It can't survive with everybody working from home. It depends upon movement in many respects, and the most vulnerable in our society aren't going to be able to work from home, and they will suffer if work from home becomes the absolute norm. I don't think it's going to become the norm. I think it's always going to be a part of our landscape, and I think that it's good to have the policies to guide us in terms of how to do that. You know, things like who pays for the internet. How does that affect your traveling allowance, which you are getting, but you're not traveling anywhere anymore? What about the light bill? You know, do you contribute to that? If lunch was part of my package, are you going to order some quick plate for me and send it to my yard? You know, there are a lot of different questions which are now coming up. You know, things like work permits. I think Lisa touched on that as well. You know, if I needed to have a work permit to come and work physically in Jamaica, but now I'm actually now working from Miami where I live, do I still need a work permit if I'm not physically in the country anymore? So there are a lot of unanswered questions coming out of this work from home and remote working model. So it's early days yet, but I do think that it's going to open up a lot more opportunity, but it's not going to become the norm. It's not going to become the standard that you will see. And I think that as the vaccination rate increases and as we move towards herd immunity, and as we move towards getting back to, or as close as we can, back to what we had before, I think the workplace is going to follow suit. And I think that you're going to see people doing hybrid working, which is working some days from home and working some days from the office.
And in some jobs that actually don't require you to come into the office, that they persons work from home. In terms of contracts, employment contracts, have you seen any new trends? Are we still putting things in like work is from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, and then we say, but there is flexi time? What trends are you seeing?
I'm not seeing, well, the contracts, if your contract was well drafted to begin with, then you would kind of have the flexibility to do this kind of thing anyway. I mean, flexible work arrangements has been our law now for 7 years. So it's something which astute businesses and nimble businesses have been using for a while. But what I am seeing a lot more of is fixed term contracts. And that's not necessarily a good thing. But because of the uncertainty that the pandemic brings, a lot of businesses are saying, I can't guarantee you permanent employment anymore. Because, you know, not even my business is permanent anymore. My business could go, you know, in the next wave. So I'm not giving anybody the expectation that they're going to be employed because I don't know that that's something I can control. So a lot of people are on fixed term contracts now, and that has a lot of, you know, knock-on effects in terms of your pension, in terms of your job security, in terms of your ability to plan. You know, some banks won't necessarily give you the same kind of financing if you're on a one-year contract as opposed to if you're on a contract of 5 years or a permanent arrangement. So we're seeing more fixed-term contracts. We're also seeing people being paid by the hour a lot more, which is something which you see a lot in the United States and some of the developed countries. Don't really see it a lot in Jamaica and in developing countries. People being paid by the hour and the ability to vary the number of hours as to suit their needs. So they don't guarantee you 40 hours a week anymore. They're saying that your salary is going to be, let's say, $150 an hour. Sorry, 150, like maybe $1,500 an hour. And I'll let you know in advance how many hours I'm going to need you this week. And it could be as few as 20 hours, and essentially you would almost like be a part-time employee. So that's one of the things as well. It's the unpredictability of your income, which is now an unfortunate feature of some of the contracts which are now being drafted. And you're also seeing people having more, redundancy waiver clauses, which is something that we didn't really see a lot of, but essentially people getting a contract for 2 years and saying that I'm going to, at the end of this expiration of the contract, I'm not going to pay any redundancy. And if you want this job, unfortunately, those are the terms that you have to agree to because I can't afford it otherwise. So, you know, we're seeing people going back to their advisors and trying to protect themselves from the unknown because they don't want to get hit a second time.
Yes. So in terms of those who may have gotten hit already and have gone through layoffs, hi Beverly. Beverly says, great conversation. Thank you for
Beverly.
So Gavin, in terms of layoffs and redundancy, because we're way past 120 days, there's been multiples of the 120 days. Are employees actually asking now for their redundancies? What's happening now in
so unfortunately, some people have not been recalled to work. Some businesses have shut down entirely. And people have been asking for their redundancies. Others have been holding off, not asking for it, anticipating that they're going to be recalled to work and that they would rather preserve their years of service as opposed to claiming the redundancy. And so we're seeing a mixture of it. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses can't even afford to pay the redundancies. You know, they don't have that kind of money stored up and retained to make half their workforce redundant at any given time. The most that they would have anticipated is making, you know, maybe 2 or 3 people redundant over the course of an entire year. So when you have a claim from 30 or 40 people, it's just not something that a business can normally afford. So unfortunately, people are claiming redundancy and being told that they're going to have to wait because there simply is no money in the bank to pay it. So that's one of the unfortunate things about what we're seeing. But I mean, on the bright side, we are seeing a lot more diversification. So a lot of employees are realizing that they have to that being an employee is inherently dangerous. And they're looking to be employers themselves, or they're looking to, you know, get into entrepreneurship and start their side hustles. Some of them are online and some of them are, you know, on the land. A brethren of mine who's watching right now, he was in IT and now he's taken up farming, you know, tree. So I think that's an absolute wonderful thing to do in terms of diversification. People have used this time to study and to do online courses and to equip themselves be more resilient and not dependent on anybody to give them a job. Yes, and that's really, I think, one of the benefits of the pandemic, if you can call it that.
Yes, and Ski Beji, Andy Dawes says, love that tree. Only Gavin. Was just asking about the 120 days. Can we just revisit that, Gavin, for those of our viewers who don't understand the 120 days?
Right, and who weren't in the last CovidCast.
Yes.
I'm not scolding question. Right, so under the law, you have 120 days to get back on your feet as a business. So if you need to lay off staff without pay, the law will give you a shield of up to 120 days to be able to kind of reorganize yourself and change up the business and see what you can do. And then if before the 120 days you call the worker back, then you can avoid having to pay them a redundancy payment. And you don't even have to pay them for the time that they were laid off without any pay either. Once the 120 days passes, then the shield falls away. And the employees can make a claim and say, you haven't called me back. Unless you call me back within the next 2 weeks or whatever, I'm going to require a redundancy payment now.
Good.
So that's what the 120 days signifies. And in some cases, what has happened is that people have, the 120 days has gone, and people sometimes have been called back, and then unfortunately the second wave comes and they have to be laid off again, and we start over the whole 120-day process again. So that's what it is.
Yes. So Gavin, thank you very much for revisiting that. And for those of you who want additional information, we have an SME memo for that. You can visit smallbusinessportal.com. and there is a memo on redundancy and layoffs. So Gavin, we touched on vaccinations, but before we go, for existing employees, if you are running a customer-facing business, for example, or if you really just want your staff to be vaccinated, are there any tips or guidelines that you could provide to business owners as to how they could encourage vaccinations?
Yeah, I can speak about my own business. What we have done is that we have invited professionals to come in and speak to the staff to make sure that they can answer questions about the vaccine, how they work, the science behind it, to try and reduce the hesitancy. And we have seen some improvement in terms of the response to the vaccine since then. There's also the question of encouragement and incentives through other means. So making sure that employees have the time off to get the vaccine if they want it, at a time that's convenient to them. And our blitz is coming up again, and so people should be giving their employees time off if possible, if they want to participate in that. And there are also incentives which people are giving in terms of, overtime assignments are being given to people who are vaccinated because we are customer facing, and we want to make sure that we are using more of the time with people who are at a lesser risk of harm. And then we have some people who are putting in place policies to say that I'm not going to make it mandatory, but it could affect your advancement in this organization.
Yeah.
We do want you to go above and beyond, and we do ask that you go above and beyond in this instance, especially if it's integral to this type of business. And while we respect your decision, that you must make in consultation with your doctor and whatever other concerns you have, we are going to be more supportive of those who have taken the jab. And we're investing a lot of resources in that. So I think that's the combination of those kind of factors is the better approach, as opposed to the big stick and telling people you're going to fire them if they don't get vaccinated. That generally don't tend to work with Jamaican people. If you tell them that you have to do this or else, you're not going to get it. But if you tell them that, you only have one more day to get the shot, and everybody wrong down to get it.
Yes.
Psychology.
And usually too, if it's akin to acquiring a visa, or in Antigua, I see the Antiguan government is giving land.
Yeah.
For vaccinations.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And in the States, they have these lotteries. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you imagine if Supreme Ventures or the other guys were to give away millions of dollars to people who are vaccinated? That would be nice.
We would have a blitz.
Yeah. I also say, if KFC was to give some free KFC to people who are vaccinated, we'd have herd immunity in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you for that, Gavin. And you see why we always have to have Gavin on the show, breaking things down for us, and adding a bit of color so that we are able to understand things that will assist us during this COVID time. Gavin, always a pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from Lewis, we've heard from Gavin Goff, attorney at law at Maz, Fletcher and Gordon, and the evening would not be complete without our next guest, Diana Burgess, founder and CEO of Much More Development Limited. So Diana is a life coach and trainer of young business professionals seeking to improve their companies both online and in real life. She's the founder and CEO of Much More Development Limited. She's an organizational development consultant and performance coach, international keynote speaker, and manages mergers and acquisitions. That's M&A, the people and cultural integration. She most recently designed a virtual intelligence framework, the unredundantable mindset, and the next leadership coaching program. Diana has been supporting organizational lives internationally and across the Caribbean since 2004. She's a certified behavioral coach and extended DISC International. Now, by the way, for those of you who know the DISC tool, Diana was the first to introduce the extended this tool to Jamaica and the Caribbean, and tonight she is on CovidCast talking to us about the future of work. Diana, great to have you on.
Hello, world and Rochelle and everybody.
So Diana, one of the things with much more development is that you help young business professionals who want to improve their business online and in real life. Tell us a little bit more about much more development, because I know that a lot of our young professional business owners are saying, but that's not like me, Diana.
Yes, me. Okay, so I want to say that everything you say is true. And then I want to focus on a couple of things. So executive coaching for leadership, because everything revolves around leadership. If the leadership is not working, nothing else is going to work, right? And then if people are not understanding their uniqueness and coming from their strengths, then there are going to be a lot of challenges with them excelling and moving through life and being really integrated and really engaged in what they're doing. So that's where when we started much more, we were called the strength management people, because I have done so much work with uncovering strengths and helping to build helping to have people focus in that area where they are in need, because you see what's happening now, as we are seeing in this new environment. Everything is shifting, and what is going to remain is where people are able to develop on their natural and their innate gifts, and that is what's making excelling and making money for people right now. Person who was a plumber at heart and they know it, but they had studied some accounting stuff, and great. I mean, I appreciate that, and that's great. But no, those things, the gifts that we are all given and came to this earth with, that's what I think is happening now and helping people to succeed. And that's where much more operates, where we help people to uncover and to help them to develop and build inside of that. Once you know it, you're like, oh, well, I know that's what I want to do that. And yeah. So that's where we support people.
I see. Beverly says, yes, Diana, it was the strength management people. Diana, the best people and cultural specialist I know. So Diana, with that kind of big up from Beverly, can you tell
Beverly actually and I started much more together. So the only person I come on here can go on and say she's just a person from out here. When I started much more, it was Beverly, and then Beverly went on to be successful in her own business, and then now, so much more is rebranding and
is to be much more.
Exactly.
So in terms of the trends that you are seeing in the workplace, because it's been a rapid change over the last year, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in the workforce today?
Okay, so the focus is in what I've seen, where people are looking for talent that's able to provide a broader and deeper sense of value to the organization. So yes, people need to specialize, but what's happening now, based on where the organization is, they want to find talent and people who are not just insular and they're just thinking about their one little track. People who are just looking to be employees, so to speak, but they're looking for people who can own what's happening in the business, and they can come in and they can get their hands dirty. That is what I'm seeing more and more of, because that's what's really needed right now in this time for us to come out of the place where we are with this COVID pandemic. If we are not looking for people who come in wanting to get their hands dirty, yes, people may come in as an accountant or a lawyer, but really and truly, we need someone to serve the client, because the client is needing some information and things. We are looking for that person who owns the thing and want to be a part of more than just the issue area that they're in. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of happening.
Yes. So there is, and businesses are encouraging more of that ownership, of that participation in the business. Omar actually says need more support for work from home. And just piggybacking on Omar's comment, in terms of the work from home environment, is that stifling or prohibiting us from getting our hands dirty and really getting involved in the business? Do you think work from home is removing people from that kind of involvement in the day-to-day business?
Well, I don't think so. I think that the day-to-day business is remote. So therefore, if the fact that the day-to-day business is remote, things are there to be done. Yes, it might not be in your area, but you know of it that is there to be done. You have a little bit a room, because you might not be occupied all the time, even though I know some people are, but if you're not occupied all the time, and again, we're back to that ownership thing. So the work is really remote. So it's not that there's, if you because you're not in office, you can't do it. You can actually do some, you might need to be reaching out to clients. Yes, I have some room, I can make some calls, or there are some, data that need to be, you need to go through and to figure out what's going on. That is how, where I'm saying, when you are able to add more to the organization, wherever, remotely or in person, that is where the value is. That's what organizations looking for. And to answer a little bit more about that question, working from home, and I like to call it remote work because home sometimes is a little bit interesting. Remote work, in my mind, is it requires a lot more focus and planning, in the sense that, you see where I am here, so sitting down, this is my workspace. When I wake up in the morning and I finish all my chores, I get myself organized and put on proper clothes and go into my office. Whether it's a space or wherever, and being able to come away somehow from your home, from the living space to working, that helps to be more focused. And those are the things that the organizations are concerned about in terms of, are people really working? And they're wondering, they're not sure and things. But if you give off that sense of trust by being, in terms of your commitment and your keeping to your schedule and communicating, letting people know where you are on different whatever work you're supposed to be doing. If you are, just give some feedback, let them know. Then the trust starts to build, and people know, okay, great, this person is working, so I don't have to worry about them. Because I think organization, you have to understand that they are concerned and wondering, are you really working? What's really going on?
Yes.
And then I am finding that the way how we used to measure performance in the face-to-face environment has shifted to more project-based. So you have a project, and these are deliverables, and have you completed it? And are you on target? Those are the things that's really going to determine the productivity. More when you were face-to-face, it would be a lot more task-based. So you're doing this and following this through, and now you tick off all these tasks to be done. But right now is, how much have you completed the projects?
Yes, and the deadlines for actually completing. I see Roger says separating workspace from living space is essential to success.
Definitely. And planning it out so that you don't have to be working all the time, but as I say, if you are focusing on the projects and the deliverables, and you're on target with communicating, then you're going to get stuff done, and you're going to be more productive. I found that a lot of people are more productive in the remote work environment.
Yes. Claudia says working from home. In fact, I've been working from 9 a.m. this morning, and I'm still working. In terms of even that part of where we're seeing the future of work, because a lot of employees have indicated that they are working longer hours
Yeah.
home, and there's a difficulty separating home from work, even where there's a separate space. Also, that the culture of the company that you would have had in that face-to-face environment is going through some transformation as persons are working remotely. With this conflagration of things, just long working hours, the company culture not necessarily being steeped into new persons because they've never come and worked in the business, the physical business. What are some of the things that employers need to know, be considering in keeping persons engaged and really building company culture?
So this is where what I found with COVID-19 pandemic is that it shows up the challenges and it also shows up the strengths of the organization, right? So that's what it does more than anything else. So when if you had previously a situation where the team would be focused on finding solutions when situations arise, then more they're going to be in that space even faster. And it is important to look now to see, okay, we're not face-to-face anymore. What can we do? We could actually sit down and say, oh God, we're not face-to-face anymore. There goes culture, it's finished. There goes engagement, it's finished. But now we have to start thinking. There are so many ideas that I've seen coming up. I mean, let me just tell you straight. More than half of my major work has been done with JMMB. I'm sure you know that, right? And when I see how JMMB has been able to manage the thing such that it's almost like you don't miss not being with people, because the persons who have that role, they focus so much on creating new ways of connecting. And I say research. There are lots of platforms out there that helps with the connection, right? And then if you have it in your focus, if it's a strategic focus for the organization, that is something that's going to make it more, it's going to be present and you're going to see it happening more and more. But if it's just a nice idea and no one is driving it, then it's not going to get done. Especially now in the remote work, someone has to be driving it. Someone has to really own it. And it's almost like it's their role to ensure that we are connecting in different ways. Monthly, weekly, whatever, quarterly, we are doing all different kinds of online stuff. We are having fun games, just little things to connect. That's one.
Becomes even that much more important, and the pulse engagement. So where you were able to do 1 and 2 activities for the year and say that there was engagement, to be constant.
Which is why I said someone have to own it. It cannot be just a thing. It has to be owned, and someone have to be focused on ensuring that the engagement is happening and that we are doing something different every month and we are connecting. Yeah. That is very, very important. If no one is driving it, it's not going to get done.
So in terms of our small businesses that have been able to facilitate persons working from home, what are some of the tips? They may not have as grand an HR department. What are some of the things that small business owners can do to keep their teams engaged and the business culture alive during this work from home time?
Okay, so before I forget, I want to say that I'm going to be sending you something that I designed, developed, and deepened that helps. It's like a performance assessment template specifically for remote work, and it's more project-based and giving them guidance in terms of how to follow up and how to make sure that you're staying on target. So those are some key stuff that's important. I say that
you will be providing this.
I'll send it to you, and you will be able to share it on your platform.
What a gift. Thank you very much, Dan.
I got a lot of help from other people, but it was an idea that I started pulling together, and then I reached out and said, oh no, guys, help me design it this way. So and so the Excel gurus out there in the world helped me. But it's really useful. And as I said, because now the focus is more on projects, completing projects, than it is on the day-to-day task, those are the things that we need to be supporting that, if the leaders, don't forget about the leaders, they have to focus on the bottom line. If they are not seeing that the productivity is up there, they are going to start to feel like, oh, you know what, maybe we need to be cutting here, and that's what we don't want unless it's really absolutely necessary. We have to find a way as the HR professionals to support the organization in ramping up the productivity such that they can see that, they can see it in their bottom line. That's what we have to do as HR professionals, support the growth and the bottom line of the organization.
Yes.
And of course that have to do with the people and the engagement and the performance and everything. But that is our role right now. I had this idea about how I'm seeing the HR profession right now. And I'm thinking that we have to change how we've seen it in the past. So it is more like what I call Chief Lifeline Officer. Because let me tell you, you see the HR role, they are on the front line, and they have to be there on the front line, not just for the team members, but for the executives, for the CEO, and they have to be pulling the thing together. They are that lifeline that the organization looking for. But if we're coming to it from the old mindset, where largely, we are focused a lot on record keeping and managing, pulling together, but now the thing shift. We have to be out there. We have to be able to acknowledge people. That might sound simple, but the HR role have to be able to say, wow, you have been doing something great in this time. Showing up and managing it. We have to be able to spot talent and to spot uniqueness in people and pull it together to help the organization accomplish their goals.
Yes.
That's what we as HR people, we have to shift our thinking, which is why I focus so much on identifying uniqueness and pulling that uniqueness together to provide value to the organization. Without that, it's not going to help. And we help to keep the thing together. And so that is where we want to focus our attention. How can we support the CEOs and the organizations, the heads, and to for them to see that the first thing is not to send people home. We can find a way to pivot and to reorganize and to reposition people and to place them in different roles and to see how, where else they can add value and how the thing how we can keep everybody eating a food more than say, okay, we have to cut here and cut there. And our role as HR professionals, we get to help them to see that can happen.
Yes. And to see the bigger picture of the roles, as you said, the Chief Lifeline Officer.
Yes. CLO. Yes. And lifeline, not lifeline for the organization, because to help the organization stay alive, and to help the organization stay alive, you have to pull the people together in a particular kind of way.
Yes. And as we're even thinking about lifeline, and during this time, we've been so focused on keeping businesses afloat, on business survival. But there's something that you're seeing a change now as mindset becomes something that we are talking about openly, engagement, work-life balance. But what about burnout? Are we seeing more mental health issues, more burnout during this time that's affecting productivity?
Definitely. definitely that's a possibility, and you can see that. And let me tell you, when people are working from home, it is the conversation in my mind is different. So work-life balance to me has given way to work-life integration. And how you do the integration, that's what helps you to be less stressed. So what I find is a lot of planning, pre-planning. If you have children, pre-plan. I only end up as and anyway, I don't have children of my own, but I'm parenting right now. And what I've found is that where you can pre-prepare everything so that when you take 10 minutes to say, oh, you just pull something and pull it together, you're less stressed than you would be if you're thinking, even if you're not doing it, you're thinking about it. What? Oh my God, I'm on this meeting and the child is lunchtime and so and so. Until you get your lunchtime is coming up. By the time they quit, you hear is break and they come and auntie, and you have to figure it. You have to plan, put some planning on it. I'm going to share some tips, and it's my little tips then that I did put together when this COVID thing just started, where everything, my whole fridge full of everything pre-prepared, because it makes life so much easier. I mean, everything is, every banana that I buy, peel and put and in the fridge. Those are things that the HR and people need to come together and find out how can we pull together some tips to help you, because you must work from home, you have to live from home, you school from home, everything. You are going to get burnt out unless you pull it together in a particular kind of way. So I love to say we all in this thing together, and we have to share the tips that what have you been doing. So if we can all come together as organizations and we say, look here, these are some things that I have used to help me work through this thing. We share and we come and we say, oh, really, I can learn from that. And because that's just what's going to happen right now. The people are stressed. The mental health, that's one. And secondly, I think organizations need to think about that in a different, in addition to the little ways of managing life. We need to find ways to say, okay, let us connect with some persons who are professionals and who we can have like an arrangement with, so that team members can call them privately if they are going over the edge and if they're feeling like they really, really need support, because people need support in this time. My work is about coaching and advisory services. And let me tell you, it's an all-day conversation kind of thing. People are calling, people are reaching out. There are like so many things going on for people right now. And it's not just work, it's not just technical, because people are overwhelmed with all of what is going on. We've been in this situation for over a year, and people are dealing with families. As I said, imagine what used to happen is that some people look forward to leaving their homes to get a little break.
I know everything.
Some people would go to work and look forward to coming home for some relaxation. That don't again. You live from home, you school from home, you work from home, everything. You can't even go somewhere because it's COVID time and we're under so much curfew and thing. So that is the mindset and the mentality of people in a big way, and we can't overlook that. We have to really put some attention onto that right now.
So in terms of from where you sit with coaching and people development and what you're seeing happening, based on the experience that people have had with work from home, the challenges and so on, and what is required in the business environment, what are some of the key things you are seeing as the future of work over the next 2 to 5 years?
Wow. Well, the future of work, in my mind, I think it starts with the future of school. So if you look at how school is happening now and how these young children have been able to adapt to the changes, and how the technology is going, that is clearly an indication of where it's going to go in the future of work. Also, I believe more and more we need to pay attention to natural strengths and abilities, because that is where people are going to be focusing, and work is going to be different than it used to be. If we need to take our cue from the quote unquote millennials who have created that gig economy where they're making money. I have a friend, and her 15-year-old son have a big business that he developed in this time, where he is doing video editing and other things for people online, making money, opening his account, everything coming through and everything. He's supposed to be in school, so he's getting the foundation. Not versus the foundation, but what I am really, really focused on with people. Understand who you are, what are those gifts, and how can you uncover and develop them, because that is what I believe the future of work is going to be. I'm not saying that we're not going to have all the technical, all stuff that we are studying at school, but I can tell you the gifts and the natural innate that we get from God is what is going to be the future of work. That is what I believe. I believe it's going to come together in a way that we are able to offer a different level of service, And I'm not talking about customer service. I'm talking about service from the heart with everything that we do. If you're a plumber, you're giving it from, you're like, when you leave, your client is like, wow. And when you start to come from that place of service, it changes everything. That is what the future of work is going to be. Delivering service at a level that is different from anything we've seen before.
Whoa.
So I think the exchange of services and exchange of products and whatever is going to be something that's going to happen as the future.
So it's not just about technical skills anymore. It's about the gifting. It's about the talent. It's that extra oomph that comes with providing.
Because when you're in that space, when you're in that space of working from your natural self and your natural gifts, you stress less, because it requires less conscious effort to get something done. I'm not saying that you don't have to focus, but for example, if you were to give me a job to be an accountant, it would be a very interesting situation for the people who need the accountant, one, and two, for me, I could do it, but I would be stressed to the bone. So that is where I'm saying it requires less conscious effort, and that is where the future of work is. When you choose people for roles that they are more naturally talented for, then you have the stress being lessened.
Yeah. So it's with natural aptitude and the natural talents. And as Imu says, this is the type of service that we need at this time. And Imu could say, I couldn't say it better than Imu. You said it so right, Diana. Service from the heart.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Diana Burgess, founder and CEO of Much More Development. She's at www.muchmoredev.com. She's also going to be providing to us the template for performance work, especially in this work from home environment. Wow. So we thank you very much from the PSOJ, Diana, for not just joining us, but also helping us with providing additional resources that will be of benefit to our micro, small, and medium enterprises as we deliver exceptional service from the heart and move through COVID. Diana, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, evening. We've had a wonderful evening of discussion on the future of work. We've heard from Lisa Suarez-Lewis, founder and CEO of Great People Solutions, Gavin Goff, attorney at law, Mans, Fletcher and Gordon, and Diana Burgess, founder and CEO of Much More Development Limited. This program is brought to you by the private sector organization of Jamaica with the sponsorship of the NCP Group, the JMMB Group, or very committed sponsors committed to ensuring that our micro, small, and medium enterprises are equipped with the knowledge to build their businesses, build their teams, build your bottom line as we emerge from this COVID-19. This program is available to you on smallbusinessportal.com. That's smallbusinessportal.com. We not only provide the programs, but we also provide a written memo that you are able to download. It has resources on it. It has the information on the episodes. This is stuff that you are able to provide to your employees as a part of the training. So please email us at SME@psoj.org. You can catch our episodes on our Facebook page, PSOJ Financial Access JA. On Instagram, please follow us on Instagram so you know what our programs are going to be. And you can binge watch us on YouTube. You can binge watch us by clicking onto the episodes on smallbusinessportal.com. We're at episode 56, and next week we're back here at 7:30 p.m. for episode 57 of CovidCastJA. So thank you again for joining us. Thanks to the PSOJ, thanks to our sponsors, JMMB Group and the NCB Group. I'm your host, Rochelle Cameron. I'm saying to you, wear your mask, sanitize, keep safe, walk good. See you. So you have a great idea to start a business, but you don't know where to start. We completely understand. You have a lot of questions and almost no answers. Smallbusinessportal.com is here to help. At smallbusinessportal.com, you gain access to information on loans, grants, and investment opportunities from verified financial institutions. Guess what you also get? Useful business tips, access to training. All these services combine to make your business idea into a reality. Start your journey today at smallbusinessportal.com.